funny. We can do this on the YouTube. It's no good on the podcast,
Okay.
obviously. So now I'm assuming that's backwards for us, but not for them. Here we go. Season 2, not sure the episode number, with Eva as the host. There we go.
All right. Welcome, listeners, to the Late Bloomer Actor podcast. My name is Eva Grzelak. I will be your fill-in host for this month's episode, as unfortunately Mr. David John Clark, your Late Bloomer podcast host, is temporarily unavailable. However, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our ultra extra very special guest, Mr. David John Clark, the actor.
Hey, that's me.
Mr. David John Clark was born in May 19 in Adelaide, South Australia, and spent most of his childhood travelling around the country with his parents and younger siblings. We'll get back to that in a minute. Getting his first taste as an actor in the booming 90s movie industry in Sydney, he got a small role in the Star Wars Attack of the Clones, in which he personally received direction from George Lucas. You've had training with Actors Inc., Greg Apps, Jeff Seymour of The Real Life Actor, and you've gone on to become a well-known and respected actor in the South Australian film and television industry, featuring in independent productions including Antares, the Rebecca Dunker classic Frequency, and the upcoming web series Blood City. David is your teacher, doctor, father figure, or enforcer type, but can draw on his life experiences with naturalistic style in character development. David is also a competitive bodybuilder and has competed in several Australian state championships. David John Clark, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. It is an honour to be able to fill in whilst your regular host is unavailable.
I have no idea where he is. He said he set this all up. It was all going to go down pat, but he's dumped us. So.
Oh, well, you can sort that out when he comes back. I'd just like to go through your bio again, just to reflect back. So I'm going to ask you, you spent most of your childhood travelling around Australia in a caravan. How long did you travel around for?
We left Adelaide just after I finished kindy. Mum and Dad bought a Viscount, and we turned left at Port Augusta and
kept driving.
So I went up the west coast, and it was approximately 14 years later we finished in Alice Springs when I started year 10.
Wow. So how did you were you homeschooled during that, or did you pop in and out of schools? Or?
No, so we went from a year in each town, essentially, or city, or wherever we went. So Mum and Dad chose a spot. Mum was a nurse, so she was able to get a job at the hospital. Dad did anything. So they went somewhere and we did a year of school in there, and then we packed up and went to the next place.
Did you draw from any experiences from that? Was there any big takeaways? And big takeaways, that sounds great. Big takeaways when you're 14 years old. But what was most impactful for you during that experience growing up?
Well, it's one of those things because you don't know any different. So, most people lived in a house and had the same friends and went to the same school all their lives, and that's what they did. They didn't know any different. And it's the same as me. I'd never done that. So I didn't know about going to one school or living in a house. So it didn't really take anything away because that was my life. That's what we just did. So, but in hindsight, as an adult, I could look back and see positives and negatives of that. Positives being I got to see some amazing parts of Australia before they put in the 2-lane bitumen highways. It was always 4-wheel drive tracks in, no one there, skinny dipping with your family because there's just no one else around. And now you can't. Now there's freeways into most of these places and thousands of tourists. So,
what a great time to be.
So, and I've seen Australia. I haven't seen the world, but a lot of people say, I've been to Paris and I've been to London and I've been here. And I say, have you been to the Bungle National Park? No, where's that? So that's a benefit.
Amazing experiences. But when growing up, like during that time, were you sporty? Were you interested in the arts? What was your...
No, I was pretty boring.
Don't say that.
Growing up, I think I tried. I was like my wife a lot. I just tried sports, but was never good at them. But had fun if I was playing sport. But no, never played any competitive sports. Bodybuilding didn't start till I was a late teenager. I don't recall doing any drama whatsoever at school, whether that was by choice or just not available.
So how did you transition into acting? How did that come into your life?
When I when I moved to Sydney, so what was that, 90s, 94, 95, I had a mate of mine who was based up in Alice Springs with me because I was at working at Pine Gap up there, and he was on a term posting. So, and I was one of the first full-timers that got there. So I needed out of the Northern Territory, so I transferred to Sydney, and he used to do extra work in Sydney, and he showed me all the stuff he used to do. I thought, that sounds like fun, great. So I just signed up with this acting agency that was extras only, and did that. So even then, and I've said this before, I said if only I decided then that I wanted to be an actor, how different things might be today, because that was, we're talking 22 years ago. So I just did extra work in Sydney. So that was my introduction to acting.
How about that? Sorry, well, I jumped the gun a little bit there, so we'll just backtrack. How did you go from 14 years old finishing travelling, the country with your family? How did you get from there to Pine Gap?
Okay, so we finished, we lived in Alice Springs when I was in grade 3. So that was one of our stops, and then finished in Alice Springs, and I think we went Queensland then. Yeah, we went Queensland, Mount Isa, grade 5. Then I skipped a year, Cairns, grade 7, and then back to Adelaide for grade 8. And then I think we went back to the Northern Territory, did Catherine for year 9. And then Mum and Dad said, let's go back to Alice Springs for senior high school. We need to give you some, lay you down a little bit. So we went back to Alice Springs, and I did year 10, 11 and 12 there with the visions of being an Air Force pilot. Should have said that when you asked the question, but all my life I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. That's the only thing. So
that was going to be my next question, but say thank you.
So all my life, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. My grandfather was in the Air Force, and I don't know why or where that came from, but I always wanted to be a pilot. And I applied. They flew me down to Adelaide for interviews and everything like that. It was all doing good, but in year 12, crashed and burned. Excuse the pun.
No, that's all right.
And I didn't get the grades required. So all of a sudden, at the end of year 12, I had a C grade average on my year 12 certificate and no visions or no doors or nothing. So now what do I do? So I think I was working at Kmart. I went full-time. That's where I was working as a kid when I was just at high school. I went full-time there, and then an advert came up for jobs at Pine Gap. For the Protective Service, a government agency that did the security there. And Dad said, you'll love it there. They got computers. This is back before we had computers. They had Apple computers, apparently. So, that sounds cool. So I applied. There was 500 applicants, and I was number 2.
Oh, my gosh.
So I was finally good at something. So,
stop putting yourself down.
So that's... So I started out there. I did a couple of months in Canberra for training, and then I think I did 2.5 years at Pine Gap before transferring to Sydney.
And then you got into
doing
the
some
acting.
Yes. So I worked at Sydney Airport in Sydney in the same job, and then did extra work in when it rocked up. So
you mentioned that Star Wars: Attack the Clones. That was obviously not your first one, but one that was quite significant for you because you received personal direction from George Lucas.
Yes.
What was that direction?
That direction, well, I remember the scene was they'd set it all up. So we know Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen were walking towards the cameras. So, one side of the room. To the other side of the room, they just got off a shuttle freighter and were walking across the apron to get onto a spaceship. So in the setup that we had, we're at the Fox Studios, it was a big warehouse and it was all green screen. So everything was green screen, the roof, the walls and everything, other than the ground we were standing on, which looked like an apron, a metal apron. I was playing a freighter captain, so I had a sidearm and Harrison Ford sort of looked on me, space sort of stuff. And another guy that was with me, and we were carrying a box. So we knew what we were doing already, but then George came over and says, hey, guys, all right, on action, I want you guys to start walking. You're going to go from here to over there carrying your box and just chatting to each other about your next mission or something. You good with that? And I went, yep. And we did it. So,
he asked if you were good with that.
Yes.
George Lucas.
Now, I will tell you what, I think I've said this story before and you'll love this, but everyone knew Star Wars was being made and everyone wanted to get on it. So I rang up the agency and I said, hey, it's David, how you going? Good. what's the chances of getting on Star Wars? I'd really love to get on. Is there any calls? What's happening? And they said, excuse me, they're really looking for weird-looking people, ugly people, just people with strange looks and different looks, because it's that sort of picture. I went, oh, okay. Well, I'll take that as a positive then, that I haven't been called. So 2 days later, they called me and said, we need you on Star Wars. And I've gone, now I'm confused.
Complex. No.
So, but it was brilliant. It was so funny because there's people, some people playing the aliens. And if you're a background alien, so not an actual actor, the masks and everything aren't as good quality as a proper one. So they pull them over their face and everything like that. And it's funny because then they go, action, and everyone does their thing. And then they go, cut. And then these people come out from the dark with little tubes of oxygen, which they stick up the nose of the mask. And inside all you hear is, because they couldn't breathe inside the mask. So
what an experience. How many days were you on set for that?
That was, I think, 2. So nothing.
2 days. 2 days of Star Wars gloriousness.
Oh, awesome. And because there's so many other things happening at the same time, it's just people everywhere and people wearing costumes and everything like that. So, and Natalie Portman. I was 24 years old, Natalie Portman. So
oh my gosh, of course. And she still looks amazing.
Yes.
And still performs amazingly, I should say.
Definitely.
So, okay, you were 24 then. What happened in between then and when you first started to get back? Because you had about a 20-year gap between acting.
So I did numerous stuff in Sydney, just all extra work and that. Like, never thought about doing any acting or doing courses or putting myself up there. And then after I'd met my wonderful wife and we married.
Hi, Kelly.
We married here, but we were still in Sydney. So we married here, had a honeymoon in Fiji. It was beautiful. And then 2001, little Rugrat came on that you just met, but he's not so little anymore, Rowan. So we put in for a transfer to Adelaide. So in 2001 in June, so just before 9/11, we transferred to Adelaide. And started living here. And I think sometime early after we got here, I said, I'll go and find an acting agency and sign up as an extra again, and which I did. And I have mentioned this story before, and this is why there was a big gap, probably. So I've gone into an agency. I never mentioned which agency it is. And I remember I called them and said, I want to sign up. And they said, yep, come in at this time. We'll have a chat to you. I was sitting on their couch in their foyer, and the agent's come out, and she's looked at me and she's gone, we don't have a place for you here. And okay. And then she's gone back in the room. And okay, so I've left. So whether she thought I was there to be an actor, and clearly I wasn't, she didn't think I was suitable or whatever, I don't know. But so I walked out there, and then I think it was 10 years later when Russell Crowe was doing his filming here for Gallipoli, or the Gallipoli movie, I should say. I said, no, I should go back into it. And that's when I walked into Actors Inc. In the city and signed up there as an extra and did they introduced me to a course. They said, I had to do their initial course to say, this is what we expect of you on set. We'll take a photo of you, all that sort of stuff. Hey, if you're interested, we've got this, we do 4 terms of study here for acting. If you're interested, I said, what the hell? Yeah, might make me higher on the extras ladder. And that's when the bug hit. So I was on with Jackie Derbyshire. She was on the course with me, and we sort of connected big time there. We were both in the same boat, and we just loved it and did all 4 terms.
That's fantastic.
The rest is history, as they say.
What was that moment? What was that spark that made you go, yep, I've got the bug. This is what I want to do. Can you remember specifically what it was, or was it just the process of like learning that made you go, I'm actually kind of digging this?
I remember, and I've said it before, instead of, in my promos, I talk about, instead of being the actor in the background, watching the actors do all the work, when I did my first real acting, so in front of everyone, and I was the one everyone was watching, that's when I knew this is cool. I'm being someone else. I'm doing something else. I'm playing another character. And that's when, and I was having fun with it. So. And
you kept on with your education. So not just the Long-Term Actors Inc., but also Greg Apps, Jeff Seymour, Stage Milk. What others are of note that you really took something away from? Who else have you worked with?
I take something from from everyone. I've done a lot of casting directors. Thea McLeod I've done a few times now. So she does majorly with Neighbours and everything like that. And she's just awesome. She's coming back to Adelaide, I think, in May. So I might try and get...
I'm not here.
I'm going to try and get Connor in to do a class with her. So, because, and I've talked about this before, I can't do a 3-year degree. So I try and do as much as I can without doing too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get, I've got to do another one. I'm not getting any work, so maybe I need to do another class. So I sort of pick
That's
and
how
choose.
you equate it? Like, I'm not getting any work, so I've got to do another class?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have those downs, and we've talked about this before,
Yes,
when you're on that down slope, you think, why am I on a down slope? Why is nothing happening? Why do I suck? Sort of thing. And you go, well, maybe I need to do another class.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to people who've taught me, Greg Apps is a huge mentor and a real big help, especially when I'm on those down moments. And he says, look, you've got what it takes. It's a tough industry. And that's what I try to tell people.
Yeah.
It is a tough industry. It's not necessarily you. Some people go their whole careers and never make it.
And that's something as actors we've got to keep remembering. It's nothing personal.
Exactly.
Nothing that, like, because we don't get a gig or somebody doesn't like what we do, or it's not personal. And it's really hard as actors, I think. And also there's a bit of empathy we carry with us. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but as actors, we are quite sensitive to criticism. I suppose everybody's sensitive to criticism, but as actors, it is the worst kind of profession to be in on an emotional level.
Definitely.
So,
definitely.
it's nothing personal.
Such small things that you didn't get it. And I put a post on Facebook recently because I auditioned for The Stranger.
I saw that post. It's fantastic comparison.
And the reason, that's why I put the photo of me, because I clearly had the look of the show. All the characters in it had that same sort of dark, broody. Yeah. Dark and handsome, mysterious look. And then if you look at the actor, and apologies, I've forgotten his name straight offhand. He's a New Zealand actor that got my part. Very similar looks. He was a lot older and a lot more weathered, which I saw that in the character initially anyway. So it was great that I actually called what the outcome was. So maybe I should be a casting director. But and that can be the big and for that was a pretty senior role in a big production. So when productions come down, that it's all about money and getting names and stuff like that. So you've got to start off somewhere. But even for those small 20 words or one-liners, that's how tough it can be. It can just be down to the smallest minute detail that you don't fit in with the main lead that you're going to get on.
And not just a physical experience as well. There might physical feature as well. It could be like just a little bit of experience that he may have had before. Or he was on this, so he knows how to do this, or people just, and like you're saying, like if it's a known actor. But then also if it's an unknown actor, because I think actors and productions also want to discover the next big thing too. So they're looking for that quality. Not saying that, you don't have it because you can do, but but it is, it's not personal. And you're right, it could be just that one little thing. And the one positive thing, well, there's many positive things we can take away from, not a failed audition, I won't call them failed auditions, but from those experiences is you did get seen, you did get into the room, you learned something from that experience, whether it's like, oh, okay, well, I did it that way, I might not do it this way, or you learned some extra lines, like that's helping you improve with your learning. You have an agent that could get you the audition, or if you don't work with an agent, that you were able to get an audition in the room. Is it just thinking of those little small wins?
Look at the positives.
The positives.
And it's the biggest thing, as they say, getting in the room is the hardest part, really. It's really the hardest part. And if you've been accepted and come in the room, especially if you get a call back,
correct,
something's happening. Something's really, really good there, and you've got to walk away with that as a positive. And I've told numerous other actors about looking at it that way. I had a friend who auditioned as a Starlight captain, and she didn't get it. And I went through all the positives. I said, well, look what you've just done. Look at all the people who have applied and look what you did and how far you made it. That's the positives of what you've got to take away. Don't look at the negatives and what you need to change. Move forward with that. So that's how I try to do it now when I get on those down slopes and realise just keep pushing through.
So do you have anything on that note? Do you have anything that you do to distract, like do you try and distract yourself after you've done the audition, or when you get that news that you didn't get it, not that anybody tells you that you didn't get a role, you just work it out for yourself. Do you have anything to take away from those moments that could be perceived as negative?
Next.
During an audition?
I just say next.
Yeah.
And I was showing you just before we started my spreadsheets where I record everything. So I go in, put the audition in, date, time, casting director, outcome, save.
That's great.
Next, and move on. So it's just if you can't really dwell on it because your mental health will go south real quick, especially if you're looking at it in a negative way.
Correct.
So it's just a job. Treat an audition as a job, the same as if you'd been on set. So once you're done. Thank you very much. And it's a good way to approach auditions too. If you walk in professional, like you've got somewhere else to be afterwards, good morning, great to meet you, thank you very much. Are you ready? Action, done, happy, need anything else? No, nice to meet you, thank you very much, and walk out the door. Then you look professional, you look like you've done it before and you know what you're doing, and you walk away and you go, well, I'm done now. The decision's out of your hands. So you can't change other people's decisions. So,
no, that's great advice. Just winding it back again, sorry. You decided to get back into acting, pursuing that again. Obviously, you had a young family with you. What was the support like that you got when you made that decision? I mean, obviously, Kelly's amazing.
I'll give you that $10 afterwards.
Okay, thanks.
Never did they ever doubt what I was doing. The only time ever, I think Kelly asked me once when I was going to set up my Facebook page for acting. She said, "Oh, already?" It was the only time. Don't get too far in yourself, I think was it. But every step that I've taken, they've always had. I've always had their back.
That's fantastic.
They've always had my back. I've always had their support. Yeah. So. And Kelly's fantastic, and she does all my self-tapes as much as she hates hearing her own voice, like we all do anyway. So, but if I ask her to do a self-tape, she'll help me as a reader, and the boys love it, and obviously Connor's following in the footsteps as well now. So he's good because he's young, so he just does it. And when I have those moments, I think I just suck. He goes, "No, you're talking shit, Dad."
Does he have those moments as well?
I think so, yeah. So he hasn't had a lot of stuff yet, but everything he's done has been so positive that it's just positive. It's great. So he's got a mate that's getting into directing now. He's done a couple of films with them, and he just has so much fun with it, and that's what's good. But when we knew he had it, he had that ability. I always called him. He's like a showman, essentially. So I always called him Robbie Williams. He was that sort of outgoing personality when he was younger. And I said, "You should get into acting. You're great." This was when I was just starting. And he always said, no, I don't want to. I think it was a bit of shyness, didn't want to put himself out there. So I never pushed it. We joked at times when he came out and did something silly. We said, "See, you should be an actor." "No, I don't want to." So we didn't push it. We never pushed it until one day something happened at school, and I think it made him look at himself and decided that he needed to do something for himself. And he says, "Oh, I might do some of those classes." And I said, "Cool." And he hasn't looked back. So
has he asked for any advice from you, or have you given him any advice that's...
Yeah, I think we work quid pro quo sort of thing. So I actually ask him for as much advice as I give him sort of thing. So because he just nails it. He'll pick up. He used to read the scripts with me, so read for me, and I'll be still trying to learn. He said, "Okay, all right, we'll do a take," and he puts the script down. He's read it once. Go, really? So
youth of today.
we work really good together, and we've done a couple of films together. We did the 48-hour film challenge together.
How was that for you, though? First of all, what made you two decide to do that together, and then how was the experience?
Just to get to make something. Together, and I think the previous 48-hour film challenge I was on, I'd put my name out there with a group, and what happened, I think on the Thursday beforehand, or no, I think it was even on the Friday. Once they got all their things, they rang me and said, "Oh, we've decided we don't need you," which is not how the 48-hour film challenge works. You can't go and get a bunch of people and then write your story and say, "Okay, we'll pick who we want." So if you want people on board, then you make the story work around them. That's correct. I don't know. I don't take any negatives away from them. That was just unfortunate. Yeah. So I missed out because obviously I didn't put my hand up with anyone else because I committed to them. So that time I said, "Hey, Connor, let's go and make our own." So we did. and you've made some stuff now.
Yes.
So being on the other side of the camera and having that responsibility of making everything work and editing, especially in a 48-hour film challenge, and that commitment was scary shit. So, but we had fun. We finished early. We didn't have any major glitches filming. Maybe I thought we'd lost all the footage once when we were editing it.
Oh, I know that feeling. Oh,
so
God.
I was getting quite angry then, but it worked really well. I had Stephen Walker sent us a voiceover to do the newsreader, so that was good. A friend of ours, Aidan Hendry, who does my promo music for the podcast, he did the music for it, so we didn't have to worry about any copyright. Kelly played a character on there that met had to have the character name, so she played that. It was good.
That's
the whole
fantastic.
family did, and I think we got a really good laugh at the festival when they played it, because the credits rolled and it's starring David Clark, Connor Clark, edited by Connor Clark and David Clark, including Kelly Clark and Rowan Clark and Aidan Clark, because they all made something.
That should be inspiring in itself, I think. Like, not just having that family support, and even if you don't have the family support, you can, surround yourself with good people to help you get where
and you can make something.
You can.
Just go and make it, because they do say you need to go and make your own stuff and get yourself out there. So,
how satisfying was it when you finished the project?
Awesome.
Under time.
And it worked, and you watched it and you actually enjoyed watching it yourself. So, I mean, we all watch some stuff and go, oh my God, that you might be involved in. You just go, oh God, I really wish I hadn't done that film.
Is that available anywhere at the moment to watch?
It's on YouTube.
Online? It is on YouTube. So what do they put in a YouTube? Like,
well, I can go to
John
David Clark Actor on YouTube, and it's one of the films, or Sam. That's a pretty. You get a lot of films, but it is on YouTube under Sam. Yeah.
Great. Now, let's go to my next lot of questions. We met on Rebecca Dunker's Frequency.
2017?
Probably.
Yes. Ish.
In our day. That was a comeback for you, or was that one of the first student
That was
productions
my
you
first
worked on?
student production. And I'm just trying to think. It was around the same time as I did What Remains. So it was one of those. It was one of my first lead support role sort of thing, even though I didn't have too many lines other than the big ending at the end. But
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. So that was one of my first. So and to be my first with Rebecca Dunker, it's just.
I know we've talked about it before. Like, Rebecca set the standard for us for student films, because
I think she set the standard for student films.
Did I say student films?
No, you said set the standard for us.
For us.
Films.
Well,
But
no,
she's-
for student film. No, 100%.
Yeah,
Check
she's-
out Rebecca Dunker's work for
She's
sure.
just awesome.
She is amazing, and she did set the standard for us. Do you have a type then? Going from that, you were cast as a big, burly, strong.
Tough
What do
guy.
they call it? Tough guy,
Yeah.
strong man. Has that been a type, or is there a type that you've kind of fallen in with roles that you've been put up for audition or taken on in the independent scene?
I try not to, but naturally I do get that the bigger guy. I get the father figure type of guys a lot, but I like to laugh that all my dad scenes are always a bad dad. So I'm always playing a bad dad, a bad husband for some reason.
Which, by the way, he's not a bad dad. He's not in real life.
That's $20 owe you now.
Thanks.
I used to play a certain role type that was the same as my career. That was what I always get auditions for.
Yeah.
Which I don't complain about. I mean, it's funny because I always laughed that I got into acting to do something different, and then they wanted me to do what I've been doing for 31 years. And we can't mention that because I'm not allowed to mention my employer. But so most of I was characterised as that, so to speak. So fortunately or unfortunately, I can't do any of those roles now. So it's good because now we can tell casting directors, you need to find other work for them. So
what would you like to do? Like, if you could, I mean, I know they say as actors we should brand ourselves to our type. Is there a type you prefer to brand to, or do you just want to go for everything?
I'll go anything that suits me, which I know that makes it broad, but
Well, what do you think suits you?
well, I've been told, Greg Apps tells me that I'm really good with the loner type the loner character. You know, the guy that's been beat down all his life and doesn't have a good network of friends and stuff like that. But William H. Macy characters, that sort of stuff. You know, the person that you don't expect to be anybody, but in the story, he is the character for good or bad.
Yeah.
You know, he's either taking out revenge on people because he's been so beat down all his life, or he's coming out of his shell and making it. So I do like that sort of stuff. So where I can have that change from the start of the story, from wherever I was as a person or a character, to a different outcome, whether that's a good outcome or a bad outcome.
Very good. So expanding on that, what would be your dream role?
I hate this question.
All right, next question.
No.
Next question.
They always say when you're running a show, they say, you've got to get your guest to say, great question, I love that question. So don't take that. No. I hate that question in that it's like saying, who's your favourite child? Dream role would be a lead role where they're paying me. But no, I think it goes exactly what I just said. Something where my character on screen, people are either just hating because he's he's the bad guy, or rooting for you because he's been downtrodden so much, and then you can see him fighting and fighting, or fighting for other people. I do like that role of being someone that draws everyone in and takes them somewhere, which is why I'd love to get on something like Walking Dead or a post-apocalyptic show where that's what the storylines are about, finding your right people and surviving. So,
and hopefully a long-term role.
Yes.
So film, television, theatre. Do you have a preference?
I love being in front of the camera, so film or TV. These days, I don't think there's much difference between both, because films are films.
Yeah,
film is great. TV, or especially all your series now with Netflix and that, they are just essentially longer films. Really, aren't they? They just
that's
so
true.
many
Production
series.
value as well has gone up on
Definitely.
television.
I mean, you got your Walking Deads and that continue on and on and on for season after season, like a standard TV show, and your Breaking Bads. But there are so many streaming shows now that are 6-8 episodes. So it's essentially a mini series or a major mini series. So. That's. I'd be happy to do any of that because the storylines are just fantastic. So,
okay, amazing. We spoke about walk-in auditions. What are your thoughts on self-tapes, and how do you approach them?
Well, it's self-tapes is all we do now. Most of my training for the last couple of years has been self-tape directed. So I started out with the audition technique, which is Greg Apps. So he teaches you how to audition. So he didn't teach you how to act. Yeah, that's someone else's domain. He says he teaches you how to audition, how to do a self-tape. So he does all the technicals in your first course, how to set it up, lighting, camera angles, etc., but how to make your character work and stand out in an audition, which can be a completely different technique to being on set.
Yeah. I think that's it's good that there's that clear distinction. Okay, it doesn't tell you how to act and how to develop your character, but how to audition. And I think that's lost on a lot of people, particularly those starting out as well. What do you perceive to be your biggest strengths then as an actor?
In auditions or just period?
Let's say both, if you like.
I would have to say my biggest strength would be I just keep going. I'm not giving up. And I'm fortunate because I don't have to rely on acting as a career. So many actors, they want to become an actor and to make, everything you do, you have to make money. I don't need to be an actor to make money. So, but I don't call it a hobby. I've always treated it professionally. So my strengths are is that I take the downs and learn from them, or don't learn from them, but I continue to move on and keep pushing on. And I reckon another big strength would be supporting other actors.
You are, yes, 100%. And I'm on the receiving end of that. Thank you very much. You've been amazing support for me.
Thank you.
In the good times and the bad times. So.
But so many actors think it's such a tough industry that you think you've got to fight for yourself. And you do. There's networking and all that sort of stuff. But it can be such a small thing that people say, oh, why are you sharing that on Facebook when that's a role you can apply for? I said, well, if it's my role, if I'm the actor for it, I'll get it. It doesn't matter. But the chances are that it might not be my role. But if I don't share it, then someone else won't see it, and they might be the actor. They might make that story so damn good that it would have been fantastic production, but they didn't apply for it because they didn't know, so they've gone with someone else that still do a great job. But in the end, I would never have got it because it wasn't my role, so I don't have a problem.
I must applaud you, though, for that attitude as well, because I think unfortunately it's prevalent. I applaud you for creating a community, like a community that's inclusive of all of us, no matter our age, race, creed,
background, where we're coming from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For all of us. But not only just with this podcast, which has been a fantastic learning curve for not just me, but I'm sure a lot of other listeners, but also Facebook groups that you are that person that we can call on and get advice from. And so bravo to you, David, for just making the South Australian acting scene a nicer place.
And it is, and it's about having information, having someone that you can lean to and get something from. And I think the biggest thing that I've got out of being that person on my Facebook group is helping a couple of female actors who had issues with going to auditions where there was questions about what they had to do. And we're talking nudity and being alone with the casting, or in particular cases, the filmmaker. And they've reached out to me for advice. And whether that was going to go south or anything like that, I was able to give them the right advice. And I think I actually went with one actress to an audition.
That's great.
And it was me, her, and the filmmaker. And so she felt a lot more comfortable and made so much more sense. So, and you see, I always share with people, make sure that they're not screwing themselves over, not working for free when you're working for a commercial situation when there's a company's making money and profits and they call in for unpaid actors. That's just not, that sort of stuff's not on.
And I admire that as well in your Facebook group. There are quite a few actor Facebook groups out there that aren't monitored for that type of content. So it's great that, you do a lot. And I don't think people recognise that. It's not just producing this podcast, but monitoring a Facebook site, plus taking care of your career and that spreadsheet that you do. Like, oh my gosh, who's got time for that? Plus your full-time job, plus you're looking after a family. You sound like a woman. No, I'm kidding.
There we go. It's a character I haven't played yet.
No, applauded to you.
Thank you.
So what areas would you like to improve in? And I'm not going to say what areas you suck at, because I don't think that's something anybody should be looking at, but in that context, but areas that you would like to improve or you'd like to learn more about.
Definitely my confidence on screen, being able to make a character look like it's actually real. I still struggle to go from that, you can tell someone's acting or trying to remember their lines, and that would probably be my biggest one, is not being 100% off script, so to speak, so you're always thinking, not having that natural flow. So being able to make the character pounce on screen that makes people want to watch. Like if you walk down the street, you see a boyfriend, girlfriend arguing, it's as much as you don't want to sit there and watch, but you can watch, and it's real life, and that's what you sort of want people to do.
That authenticity.
And I've had that. I've obtained that. I've had people say, love what you did in that self-tape or whatever. So it's there. It's about making it work every time. And then having that and being in the right spot that then you get the role. Yep. So, we're both the same. We've both had numerous independent roles and fantastic fun. And the stories are great and they look great. It's about transferring that over to a real world paid area where you're going to be seen, et cetera, et cetera. It's not about being famous. It's about
consistent work.
Yeah, it's about being an actor.
Yeah, about being an actor.
Definitely.
No, I agree with you 100%. We talked about the 48-hour project with Connor. Is there anything else you're thinking of creating? Because it is key, and this has been discussed on a number of your podcasts, that we as actors create our own content purely to stay in the game and to keep learning other facets of the industry. Is there any other content you're thinking of creating?
There's always something. I've got plenty of ideas. I wanted to make a TV series in the vein of Shameless. I haven't got I haven't put down story because I don't. No, let's not look at the negative of it. I've got a story that I want to make, and it's about a gym community, and and trying to think of how to make that work. So it's an old guy, he owns an old type gym and everything like that, rusted barbells and everything like that, fighting in the industry where there's all your anytime fitnesses and that. And then you've got your bodybuilders and druggies and bikies and that sort of stuff. So scope for big stories, and the side stories is that his son's opened up one of those new corporate gyms and everything like that. So he's fighting with him.
It's going to be good.
But that's something, that's a big production I'd like to do, and I've reached out to Matchbox Pictures. Kirsty has given me some input on how to do the submissions, and so I've got characters down pat, and I've started to write that stuff. It's one of those things that just sort of sits there, and then you attack it every now and then. But
as long as you keep coming back to it.
And I think the biggest thing is finding a team that can help you, because you can make your own stuff. And I like making my own stuff because then I don't have to rely on anyone else, because we've discussed this before. There's so much stuff that everyone volunteers for, and I'm reluctant to be another person that reaches out and says, I want to film this. Can I have a filmmaker and a cameraman and that? And there's no money involved.
I think we're in that blessed position where we have, and there's quite a few other actors out there, I'm sure, where we have done those gigs that for free, and we have helped out on student films, the next generation of filmmakers coming up, and we have worked with a lot of independent people. So I don't think we should be afraid to call those people and ask them, would you mind working on this? I loved working with you on this. Could you work with this? Rather than putting up that post asking for free labour. I don't know. For me, that's something. And I think I come from it. It's like, I won't post that on Facebook because I don't want those trolls going through, what are you going to pay? This isn't fair for us. And this is,
and it is tough to get the commitment.
It is tough to get the commitment. It is. But I think we're in such a good community where we can call on favours from friends after doing so many friends. Definitely. So I hope this, you can chip away at it and make it a reality, because it sounds great. I think the antics in the gym from that perspective is.
But on that note, I don't want to be a filmmaker. I don't want to be primarily a content maker. I want to do acting.
Yes, so of course.
I'll make content for the benefit of trying to put your work out there. That's what I do. So short form stuff's better. Do the 48-hour film, make a short film, etc. My podcast was my biggest thing. That was my way of putting content out there and meeting the same gauge of. So
why did you start the podcast? That was going to be my big question I was going to end on. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Why make this podcast?
Because it was because it was one content way that I could do that I knew how to run, that I didn't have to rely on anyone else. So it was something I could run, and I could meet the goals of what I do, what I wanted. Put myself out there, meet other actors and directors and people like that through having them on board, as well as sharing information. So it came back to what I did on my Facebook group. It was about making something. So I think I originally reached out on my Facebook group and said, hey, would anyone be interested if I made some videos on, how to do your IMDb and how to join your casting networks and how to do your self-tapes? And that went to, and then I think I started listening to podcasts to get other people's input into acting. And I went, hey, I can make one of those. And there you go.
That's great. So, and it's a good niche area as well for us as people who decided later in life to pursue an acting career. So what advice do you have for other listeners who are considering becoming a late bloomer actor, or already are late bloomer actors that are just, need to get over a little hump?
Just do it. I've said that before without stealing the logo from a certain shoe company.
With a tick.
I think that's the biggest thing is you've just got to, if you want to do it, you just got to do it. The scope is out there so much, and it's getting bigger and bigger that you can. But don't go in thinking I want to be Mel Gibson. I've never thought I'm going to be Mel 100%. Gibson. 100%. But I've treated it professionally. But you don't have to do as much as I do. You can do as much as you want, as little as you want. But if you don't do anything, you'll never be that actor. And you always say, I always wanted to be an actor. And then 10 years later, I always wanted to be an actor. And then 10 years later, you're 70, I always wanted to be an actor.
So those people saying, I always wanted to be an actor, or I wouldn't like to start acting, what would be the first couple of steps you would recommend for them to do? to get into this. It's one thing to say, and it's great advice, just do it. You're right, we should just do it. But for those people who are not quite sure how to start or how to break in or where to put that first point in their journey.
Well, so many entry points now. You can sign up with an agency. Yes, if you're in the bigger cities, it's harder, but there are lower level agencies that you can get in, and you can just sign up as an extra. There are extra agencies, which is how I started. There's acting classes galore that come out of the brass razoo, so to speak. So you can just go and do something that gets you introduced to people and introduced to the industry, and then go from there. And there's so many online things now where you can sign up to get jobs and do student films and to do real work. So you can put your picture out there and just find your entry point and then jump on it.
Yeah. I think also it's key that if you can put in the effort to research, like starting from where you live, researching the agents, the acting classes, what's available online, if you can put in 100% effort on that, then 100% effort into the next step and the next step and the next step. As long as you're putting in 100%, who said that? That's the question. Who said that on one of your podcasts?
Oh.
You can put it in as long as it's 100%.
Definitely. I'm trying to remember.
Answers will be in the comment because I can't remember either.
But no, that's it. Just, and again, that's right. Just do it. So, and if you don't do it, then you're always going to regret that you didn't even give it a go.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. No regrets. So I think we're getting around about that time. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see the clock over here, but I can see the big one on the wall. It's time for the fast round.
Dun, 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 dun.
Right. Are you ready, Mr. David John Clark?
No, I'm always the one that gets to ask these questions.
No. First one, dinner with anyone, living or past, who and why?
Have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Because?
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I have met.
All right, there's a story. Fast round just turned into another half hour.
Most definitely. I was fortunate to win a ticket to a conference he was doing in Sydney, a motivational seminar. And it was a meet and greet as well. So he did his big speech up on stage, which is just brilliant. And a lot of what I've just said now about just doing it and don't be afraid to fail. I can hear his accent. Don't be afraid to fail.
I was going to try and stay away from that trope. But
is what he says in his motivational speeches. And then afterwards, we got to go and have a photo op. So it was very quick. I think there was a couple of hundred people that got to meet him. So you're lining up and you're getting through, and then he's there. And so he's turned to me. It was my turn to come up, hand out, shake hands. Hey, how are you? He says, I'm good, thank you. Then you turn to the camera, we got our photo, and I said, thank you. And he says, nice to meet you, and I walked off. So there's two things I like to say about Arnold Schwarzenegger. His hands are huge. It's like just so strong, but I'm taller than him by about that much. So definitely would love to have dinner with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but that's another question. That's like, who's your favourite child? We'd all love to do it. I mean,
and then you'll think about it afterwards, because I know when you asked me that question, it's like, I wish I said this one. Not that, I said my father because I would like to have dinner with my father again, but who would you like to work with? An actor, director, or filmmaker? Or all three, one of each?
Jeez, that's another question. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He'll have to stand on a plinth, though, acting next to you.
Definitely. Oh, God, that is such a tough question, because you go, so many great Australian actors that I would just love to have, even if it's just a one-liner with them. On the set, so, ma'am, here's your coffee, or whatever like that. Just it's such a hard. I really couldn't call it. I mean, without being, just saying Arnold Schwarzenegger all the time. Of course, I'd love to do a movie with him or Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. Al Pacino.
Oh, yes.
That sort of stuff. Just all the classic actors that are just. Bruce Willis, I would say Bruce Willis, and it's such a shame of what's happening with him at the moment. That just made me think. It's
gut-wrenching.
You could name a dozen people. I would love to be actually directed by George Lucas again in a sci-fi thing. Thinking of Antares and Thorin Cupid did such a great job as a director, and here I was all of a sudden on set in a space movie, which is such a big genre that I love. To do something like that would be fantastic.
Unfortunately, George Lucas has retired on a big fat wad of money, so
they say he's retired, but
you never
he may
know.
come back. Steven Spielberg, he's
yes.
almost George.
Have you seen The
brother.
Fabelmans?
No, I haven't yet.
Very interesting.
No.
What are you watching now?
Watching, trying to catch up on Walking Dead, and we're watching Last of Us, which is just brilliant.
What do you think? Did you ever play the game? Me neither.
Didn't even know there was a game.
So
Connor plays the game,
into
and he's finding it tough not to tell us what's going to come up because the show's so good, close to the game apparently. But again, it's my favourite genre: apocalypse, zombies, that sort of stuff. So, excuse me, loving that. So yeah.
Your T-shirt quote.
I should have even thought about this question.
You
That's
haven't.
my question.
All right, you've got.
I can't say
1 minute.
I can't say just do it because that's already taken. So if you want it, make it happen.
Correct. Very nice. I expect my printed shirt in the mail.
I love the shirt.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Goes well with the podcast.
I borrowed it from the host of the Late Bloomer Actor podcast.
He's a good-looking bloke.
He's not bad. So's the guy on the cover of the book he's reading, Jeff Seymour.
Currently in Australia, but I'm not going to be able to get down to Melbourne to see him.
Now, I'm going to plug the Late Bloomer Actor podcast.
Good podcast.
It is a very good podcast, and we'd like to see more episodes of it. If you would like to become a paid subscriber, go to the Late Bloomer Podcast, buzzsprout.com. The Late Bloomer Actor, buzzsprout.com. Click on the little heart in the corner, and it will take you straight to PayPal to make a contribution and become a paid subscriber. And whilst I'm talking about it, David can be thinking up some little exclusive goodies or pluses or bonuses that you can get from being a paid subscriber. Now I'm putting him on the spot. No. Mr. David John Clark, the actor.
Eva.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's lovely having you here in the studio.
It's been a pleasure. It's such a great podcast. I've always wanted to be on it.
Oh, I'll let the host know your sentiments. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Late Bloomer podcast. My name is Eva Grzelak, here with David John Clark. Stay tuned for next month's episode.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.